Flying back home to British Columbia in the summer of 1977, the New York Rangers rookie sensation, who 6 months earlier had played in the NHL All Star game, hid in the plane's bathroom, covered his face with his hands, and cried. Cried for his reckless decisions. Cried for the shame he'd brought to himself and his family. Cried for the promising future that was no longer certain. Don Murdoch was 20 years old, blessed with talent, fame, and fortune, but cursed with immaturity and clouded vision. On the long flight home, he could not guess the extent of the gathering nightmare. The criminal charges, the public abuse, the crippling stigma, the guilty plea, the suspension, and, perhaps, the beginning of the end of a surefire career in the National Hockey League. A native of Cranbrook, British Columbia, Don Murdoch teamed with Medicine Hat Tigers line mates Morris Lukowich and Greg Carroll to form one of the most prolific lines in junior hockey history. Murdoch tore through the WCHL from 1974 to 1976 with a pair of 80-plus goal seasons and was selected 6th overall by the New York Rangers in the 1976 NHL Draft. The Rangers, who had just foolishly traded away budding superstar right wing Rick Middleton, were elated to draft Murdoch, whom they touted as the Rangers' next great goal scorer, replacing the aging Rod Gilbert. Murdoch wasted no time in capturing the attention of everyone in the NHL. In his first 3 NHL games, he scored 8 goals, including 5 in one game. He was well on his way to smashing the NHL rookie goal-scoring record with 14 goals in his first 14 games, 17 in his first 20, and 25 in his first 32 contests. Rangers GM John Ferguson likened him to Guy Lafleur. Murdoch was chosen to play in the 1977 NHL All Star game, which happened to be in his home province. The NHL has rarely seen a more storybook beginning to a career, and this amazing story was unfolding beneath the bright lights of Broadway. But on Valentine's Day 1977, the lights went out on Murdoch's magical rookie campaign when he tore an ankle tendon in practice that would require multiple surgeries to correct. Once considered a shoo-in for the Rookie of the Year honors, he ended the season with 32 goals in 59 games, 1 less goal than eventual Calder Trophy winner Willie Plett of the Atlanta Flames. During the time away from the rink, the small-town kid took full advantage of his celebrity and the bright lights of New York. Murdoch was adored by Ranger faithful and New York literati. Everyone wanted to be seen with the Rangers' new superstar. Murdoch made nightly appearances at New York's high-profile bars and clubs, most notably Charlie O's at MSG and the notorious hedonistic hotspot Studio 54, where he danced with Margaret Trudeau and hobnobbed with Sylvester Stallone and Mick Jagger, among others. He didn't refuse a lot of free offers for drinks, and eventually he'd be offered much more than booze. Soon enough, Don Murdoch, hockey's brightest young star, was a kid with an alcohol and drug problem. The carefree life and foolish times of Don Murdoch fell to pieces on August 12, 1977, when a customs officer at Toronto International Airport opened the tote bag of the Rangers' hot shot and discovered a package containing a razor blade, a rolled-up dollar bill, and 4.8 grams of cocaine. Don Murdoch's life and his career would never be the same. I was in the limelight. My life was moving so fast I didn't even know where I was going, he says. I fell in with the wrong crowd, and that was a big mistake. With the trial delayed for over a year, the drug rap haunted Murdoch as he slowed to 27 goals and 55 points in 66 games in 1977-78. He endured a relentless onslaught of taunts from fans throughout the league, and his fortunes worsened even further when he suffered a painful back injury in February. Despite all of this, Don's lifestyle continued at its reckless pace. He said, "The 77-78 season was terrible. The court case was always on my mind. People were calling me a junkie and a doper. I was drinking a lot. I couldn't handle just being alone, so I always had to go out. I was staying up late, not getting a good hour of sleep." In his 2003 autobiography, Rangers teammate Phil Esposito recalls Murdoch's lack of discipline this way. Quote, "He was a talented kid but had wicked problems with alcohol and drugs. At first, I thought it was just a drinking problem. You could smell the booze on him every morning. He'd go out on the ice half in the bag, even in games. Once with the Rangers, he skated into a goalpost and they had to get him out of there. Despite all of this misery, Don did enjoy one great moment in the playoffs versus the Buffalo Sabres.
Great puck squirts out in front. Murdoch scores! So Don Murdoch comes up with the overtime goal after each team had a goal pulled back. And this crowd is going crazy. And that's the first overtime playoff game that the Sabres have lost in the last 7.
When the trial finally proceeded in July of 1978, Murdoch was given a suspended sentence and a $400 fine. That was a slap on the wrist compared to what the NHL did to discipline Don. NHL President John Ziegler wanted to make an example of Murdoch so that other players would stay clear of drugs. He suspended Don for an entire year. The NHL and the NHLPA offered little sympathy to Murdoch. This was the NHL's first public drug incident, and the league's approach was punishment as opposed to rehabilitation. In retrospect, there's no doubt the league was zealous in punishing Murdoch, but looked the other way as the drug usage mushroomed throughout the league. In fact, Gilles Gratton, a Rangers goalie in Murdoch's rookie year, recalls that nearly everyone on that team was getting high. To the NHL, it seems that Murdoch's real crime was being caught in public. Luckily for Don, Rangers owner Sonny Werblin overlooked the drug fiasco and gave him a hefty raise and a 3-year contract while he was still serving his suspension. John Ziegler lifted the suspension after 40 games of the 78-79 season, and Murdoch was eager to show fans that the old Murder Murdoch was back. He scored a hat-trick in his second game and then paired with Phil Esposito and rookie Don Maloney on the Mafia line to form a trio that sparked the Rangers' exciting run to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Murdoch fighting for control, gets it back to Marois. Screen shot, save, rebound! Murdoch! Murdoch with some heads-up play. Esposito was thrown out of the faceoff. Murdoch pulls his way in the faceoff. It comes back to Mario Mawa. He makes the shot. The save is made by Resch. The puck goes out to Murdoch. He takes his time, makes a complete circle and throws it behind Resch. It is a tie and hockey game.
Despite these high moments, Don was now nursing shoulder and back injuries in addition to his surgically repaired ankle. Coupled with his still undisciplined off-ice escapades, he was never able to fully recapture the form that made him the talk of the NHL in 1976. Late in 1980, Rangers coach Fred Shero pulled him from the Espo line and played him sparingly. A disgruntled Murdoch requested a trade, and the Rangers obliged at the trading deadline in March of 1980, trading him to the Edmonton Oilers for bruising forward Cam Connor. Now, Oilers GM Glenn Sather slotted Murdoch on the right wing on a line with Wayne Gretzky. Murdoch responded with 7 goals in 13 regular and postseason games, and it appeared Murder was back in business. But at the Oilers training camp in 1980, a little-known 4th-round draft pick from Finland, Jari Kurri, immediately clicked with Gretzky and would begin his Hall of Fame career as Gretzky's right wing. Meanwhile, Murdoch slid down the depth chart and fell out of favor with Sather. Rumors surfaced that the Oilers considered him to be a bad influence on his young cousin, Mark Messier. Edmonton placed him on waivers, but no team claimed him. At the age of 25, Murdoch's career had hit rock bottom. After clearing waivers, Murdoch was demoted to the Central Hockey League's Wichita Wind, a team that drew 1,500 people per game and struggled with a losing record. Murdoch was depressed, and he missed multiple practices. Finally, he left the team to ponder his future. The Wind suspended him for 2 weeks. But the fallen phenom Murdoch decided to recommit himself to playing in the NHL. he proceeded to put the Wichita club on his back and carried it all the way to the Adams Cup final, scoring a remarkable 17 goals in 18 playoff games, and he was named the CHL Playoff MVP. This performance revived interest among NHL GMs. The Minnesota North Stars acquired him from Edmonton and flipped him the same day to the Detroit Red Wings, along with Greg Smith, in exchange for swapping draft picks in the 1982 NHL draft. The North Stars ended up with Brian Bellows, while the Red Wings witnessed the official end of Murdoch's NHL career as he scored just 9 goals in 49 games before being dispatched to the AHL Adirondack Red Wings, where he would spend the next 3 seasons. Despite toiling in the minors, Murdoch remained front-page news as his hard-partying New York days resurfaced in full detail in the 1981 book Thin Ice by Larry Ratso Sloman, a writer who had followed the Rangers throughout the 1979-80 season. The salacious details regarding Murdoch's prolific nightlife were graphic and crude. Further, Sloman's account of Murdoch's sordid off-ice exploits were excerpted in the February 1982 edition of We magazine, an explicit adult publication. Esposito sums up the string of the base tales by simply noting that Donnie was a maniac when it came to women. On the ice, Murdoch kept his NHL dream alive while riding buses in the AHL, but he soon learned a harsh lesson in professional sports. A lot of misdeeds can be forgiven until you can no longer produce. According to Detroit GM Jimmy Devellano in 1983, quote, Don Murdoch's career has been a disaster. Donnie no longer has the legs or the scoring touch to play at the NHL level. In fact, he struggled badly in the AHL. The years of tough living had caught up to his legs and his hands. A 2-year trek through the low minors followed, with stops in Montana, Muskegon, Indianapolis, and Toledo, before Murdoch called it quits in 1986. He was just 29 years old. Murdoch returned home to Cranbrook and loaded beer trucks for his brother Bob, who had also played in the NHL. Don returned to hockey when he was hired as a scout by the expansion Tampa Bay Lightning, managed by his old pal Phil Esposito. He did a stellar job in Tampa through the 1990s and eventually became director of player personnel. He coached for 1 season the ECHL with the Louisiana Ice Gators, leading them to the ECHL finals before retiring from coaching in 2000. In 2001, Don Murdoch ended his 25-year pro hockey odyssey and retired to Cranbrook, with lessons learned and his reputation repaired. Today, he devotes much of his time to his close-knit family and relaxes playing golf. For over 2 decades, he's helped run a successful hockey school in Cranbrook. Always personable and friendly to fans, he's fondly remembered by Ranger teammates and Blue Shirts faithful. In 1987, he looked back at his star-crossed career this way. People have no idea what I went through as a 19 to 20-year-old kid, he said. It was my fault. I knew I had a problem, and I tried to hide it. New York is the greatest city in the world. It can make or break you. Some guys like Ronnie Greshner can handle it. I never could. Not one day goes by where I don't say I wish I could do it over. Not one day. This lesson of regret is one he shares with aspiring hockey players today. It has become Don Murdoch's purpose in life to help youngsters avoid the mistakes he made at an early age. As Don proudly says in summing up his life's path, I've taken a negative and turned it into a positive. If you enjoyed this look back at Don Murdoch, check out these classic documentaries from the Pro Hockey Alumni.